In my last video, I mentioned there were two spider horror films released this year quite close together that happen to have almost identical plots involving a pet killer spider that grows abnormally in size, escapes into the ventilation system of an apartment complex, and naturally begins murdering the locals. What I thought was interesting about both of them was how they represented the opposite spectrums of the creature feature, the self-aware eccentric B-movie, and the self-serious, if inherently far-fetched horror with a capital H. Last time, we talked about the former approach called Sting, which dealt with an intergalactic spider that, while still stressful for arachnophobes like me, was relatively lighthearted and played heavier on the fantastical side of its premise. However, this time, we are dealing with the ultimate serious spider nightmare fuel. Yes, it still naturally requires suspension of disbelief, but unlike Sting and more akin to Arachnophobia and Kingdom of the Spiders, this film uses real spiders. Fucking huntsman spiders, to be exact. Granted, enlarged with CGI, but that doesn't make them any less real to me. Originally titled Vermin to echo its themes, Infested tells the story of an inner-city apartment complex in Paris where an exotic animal collector called Caleb seeks to escape the confines of his marginalized, impoverished upbringing by making enough money hustling what I believe are either counterfeit or stolen shoes to further his ambitions of opening a reptile zoo. One day, he purchases a mysterious breed of spider from a local pawnshop owner that all we know was smuggled in from the Middle East and is not only highly aggressive, but gives one very mean fatal bite. Of course, as you might expect, it isn't long until the scampering little fucker escapes and lays thousands of eggs that soon unleash an army of fast-growing ravenous swifty spiders ready to protect their territory from those who simply don't understand. However, what's key here is that, like Arachnophobia and Kingdom of the Spiders, Infested attempts to respectfully showcase the realistic and believable behavior of a creature that's typically misrepresented in fiction as, well, the villain. Now look, you are never going to be able to rationalize spiders to me. I know that they're more scared of you than you are of them, but for all the conscientious efforts to show us that actually spiders are these delicate, beautiful beings just trying to protect their home and will only attack when provoked and they will eat all the other horrible bugs in your house, there is a contradiction in the fact that this is still a fucking horror movie that frames spiders as legitimately terrifying beings. Before we dive deeper into despair, this video is sponsored by Odoo. Odoo is an all-in-one management software designed for business owners to optimize their workflows, such as accounting, inventory, project management, or my personal favorite, website creation. Your first Odoo application is free for life with unlimited hosting and support, and with website creation you even get a free personalized domain name for the first year. Odoo Website Builder is an absolute must for anyone looking to create a no-nonsense, efficient, easy-to-use, stylishly professional website with total control, whether you're a beginner or advanced. Using an intuitive drag-and-drop feature, you simply select from a range of blocks that fit your needs, like buttons, text, and visuals, and use the grid to precisely organize them. For example, if I want to make a page dedicated to my found footage reviews, I can effortlessly embed my videos, edit color, text, use Google font integration, and highlight important sections using graphics and animation. I'm not particularly tech-savvy, but dragging in blocks and editing them down to the finest detail has never been so easy and hassle-free. Odoo also includes ChatGPT integration to help you generate, rephrase, and translate text, while Unsplash gives you access to a royalty-free library of visual content to really spice up your website. Simply click my link in the description box below to start your own free website with unlimited support today, and check out everything else Odoo has to offer. Now, with that said, I have to give director and co-writer Sébastien Vaniček credit for the noble ambition behind its premise. Vaniček explained to the Daily Beast that the spiders are never shown to be hostile, and only ever respond in defense when they're attacked first, which lends itself to the very subtle monster as a metaphor type story that Vaniček aims to tell. If someone were to ask me why I hate spiders, my response would likely be, it's the way that they look, the way that they move, the sheer presence of them in my space. But to quote Vaniček in an interview with Screen Rant, that response is basically xenophobia. You're judging something for how it looks and perceive its existence as a problem to you. As such, Vaniček argued our perception of spiders drew an allegorical parallel with the setting of the film, which is suburban inner-city Paris that has a reputation for social deprivation and criminality, and that's without accounting for racial profiling and discrimination that unfortunately very much exist used in the same context. Now, bear in mind, I am speaking purely from Vaniček's perspective, given the film was shot close to where he grew up, thus drawing off his own experiences to develop an empathetic portrayal of the setting and its characters. While I've been to France on several occasions, I know very little about it, but I did analyse Mateusz Kassovitz' La Haine in college, which dealt with the same concepts, if indeed by comparison is utterly grounded in bleak social realism. For the sake of a spider film, I'm obviously not going to go into the whole peer-reviewed sociology behind it, because the last thing we need when dealing with a very nuanced and deeply complex subject matter is another guy lecturing us about how the world supposedly works. But in the context of the film, our protagonists, which include Caleb, his best friend Mateusz, his sister Manon, his former best friend and sister's current boyfriend Jordi, and her sister Lila, eventually find themselves in quarantine when the spiders infest the building, and late into the story, they end up confronting the police, who refuse to not only explain themselves, but outright assault the group when they rebuke and fight back against how they're being treated. If you can read between the lines, you can see what I'm getting at, but the way the film is built up to this point shows how desperate and disenfranchised the locals of this dilapidated apartment complex feel way before shit hits the fan. It's when the issue exacerbates are they provoked by the way they've been treated, kind of like how the smugglers in the opening force the spiders out of their own home via gas, which is then mirrored when the group try to exit the building and are gassed by the police. The apartment complex bluntly symbolizes these people being trapped or imprisoned, cocooned even, in their poverty and deprivation. Caleb and his group all individually aspire to better their lives and are either proactively trying to do so and be self-sufficient, or they become so defeated by the perpetuation of their hardships that they succumb to the vicious social cycle it's long created. In fact, in a Fangoria interview, Vaniček even made a profound point about spiders not being scary to him, but time being something that does, which echoes through via a sense of urgency between Caleb and Manon to get out of this complex before they're stuck in this life forever. It's the ignorant, classist, xenophobic perception that they're all crime-ridden lowlives who simply slum around and bring down society that the film challenges by establishing a duality between them and the spiders. They're ultimately just trying to survive with the hand they've been dealt. They are victims of circumstance, and society's solution is to contain the problem and let it be, which leads to a bleak, if unfortunately honest conclusion that I'll talk about at the end. It doesn't try to whitewash the inherent conflicts and complexities of its characters. It's not like they're all perfect, misunderstood, good people with kind, thoughtful hearts. Each of us are a socially conditioned product of our environment. We do what we have to endure. So anyway, with all that said, we can finally get into the spider shenanigans. Basically, a group of smugglers smoke out a spider's nest in the middle of the desert, only for one of them to get bitten and mercy killed, before they transport the captured species around the world, one of which ends up in a pawn shop in Paris where it's purchased by Caleb. As I said earlier, the opening helps frame the spiders as victims of circumstance, and contextualizes their behaviour as a reaction to being taken from their environment and forced into a foreign setting that they're now trying to make their home. The community within the apartment complex is approached very similarly to Attack the Block, where it highlights the various social issues, challenges, and lifestyles faced by our well-meaning protagonists. In particular, Caleb's relationship with his sister has grown sour, as she's frustrated at him prioritizing his exotic animals and shoe hustle business over assisting her in renovating their deceased mother's apartment, which she hopes to sell so they can finally escape their circumstances. The problem with Caleb is that, like the spider's behavior, he's grown reclusive, defensive, and somewhat mistrusting after a messy falling out with his childhood best friend and former business partner Jordi, after Caleb's iguana bit his leg, leading to surgery and a permanent limp, and when Caleb kept neglecting to show support, Jordi told the police and their friendship basically collapsed. Although it is later discovered that Jordi felt tremendous guilt for telling the police, but he understandably was blinded by rage and felt embarrassed to ever explain himself to Caleb, and all I'll say for now is, it makes a certain outcome even more tragic and ironic. Exotic animals and fancy shoes eventually collide when Caleb gives a pair to the resident tough guy, which happened to contain the spider Caleb purchased. But surprisingly, the tough guy actually kills the spider before it bites him, but not before hundreds of babies attack him, leaving him to fatally suffer as the spiders make their home in the ventilation system. It does a very effective job in selling the grimy, claustrophobic, and disrepaired setting. Vaniček noted Jeremy Saulnier's green room as an inspiration, and you can definitely see that in its nauseating and suffocating colors and lighting, and the way it forces the viewer closer to walls and surfaces where spiders may be lurking does intensify how horrible these circumstances are. It only seeps further into literal virus territory when the tough guy's body is eventually found and the police quarantine the building, naturally reflecting the traumas of the pandemic which are referenced early in the story. Hell, if you think the nightmare stops there, it takes it another significant step further when the infestation quickly escalates and the group are encouraged to stay away from anyone who's bitten because, in their words, it's too late. Those infected, so to speak, likely have eggs laid inside of them, so we just need to change that C to an S. You can see what I mean when pointing out the contradiction in treating spider behavior as natural and realistic. Vaniček even describes them as beautiful in one interview, and not feels xenophobic towards them when bombarded with the revelation that they both grow in extraordinary size and lay fucking eggs inside living people. It does not overlook the fact that spiders by their very nature are still inherently scary beings, even if they are greatly exaggerated in this film. Anyway, after getting past their violently xenophobic neighbor Giles, who thinks they're low-life criminal drug dealers responsible for everything that's happened, perpetuating the central theme of the film, and they contend with their beloved neighbors tragically dying, again perpetuating the central theme of the film, they attempt to make it to the parking lot to escape the quarantine. And I will put it to you that the narrow, spider-ridden hallway is easily the scariest thing I've seen this year, outside discovering Spencer Lackey videos. It is an incredibly harrowing scene that demonstrates the point about spiders not being aggressive by nature and only responding when provoked, as the group attempts to slowly edge their way through the nest of spiders under the pressure of a light timer. What you're seeing here speaks for itself, and things only proceed to get worse when they make it to the exit only for the police to block it and gas the group, forcing them back towards the stairwell, causing Jordy to get separated and fall into a pile of spiders and helplessly scream in agony while the group can do nothing about it. As I foreshadowed earlier, it's even worse for Caleb because outside the guilt of not reconciling his relationship with his childhood friend before his demise, this is technically the second poisonous animal owned by Caleb to attack his friend, only this time it finishes the fucking job. The survivors quickly ascend the staircase while pursued by the spiders that have now grown in a holy crap alarming size and are eventually confronted by the police, arguably much worse, and put under arrest. While one of the police officers does attempt to sympathize with the group and explains that what's happening is outside his power and control, Mateus reveals he's been bitten and slowly succumbing to the poison, so in a last effort to stick it to the man and fuck the police, he breaks down the door containing the hallway nest of spiders, who I guess symbolically riot against the police. Caleb and the others do eventually escape after a mutual understanding with a spider blocking their way as if symbolizing the connection they have, but there isn't really a resolution in the sense that, hooray, all the spiders are then destroyed. Instead, sometime later, we see a memorial wall paying tribute to the victims of the apartment complex as it's demolished. The thing is, it doesn't matter what happens to the spiders. The point it makes is that society would rather erase the problem from existence rather than find a solution that suits the betterment of the victims. It's easier to destroy something than it is to rebuild it. And as we see Caleb bury his memories of him and Jordy, he finds a lone spider on his shoulder. However, instead of destroying it, he blows it away, symbolizing that he's let go of the pain and letting the creature continue to live freely, much like how Caleb and his community always wanted for themselves.